The sole objective reality this planet provides is the product of human imagination, in which everything exists. I want to teach you tonight how to use methods that are subjectively appropriate to transform what is already inside you into an objective truth. Everything you experience in life is merely a reflection of your imaginative pursuits, and your imagination finds fulfillment in the forms your life takes. Proclaiming, "I will be rich," is not going to get me there. You have to believe wealth in by means of personal claim. I am rich. You have to believe in the present tense, since God is the active creative force you are carrying. God alone acts and is your name forever and always. You are awareness. He cannot thus claim, "I will be rich," or "I was rich, but I am rich." Claim what you want to be aware of now, and although your reasonable mind denies it and your senses deny it, if you will assume it with feeling, your inward activity, established and perpetuated, will objectify itself in the outside world, which is nothing more than your imaginal activity objectified. To try to alter the conditions of your life before you alter its imaginal activity is to labor in uselessness. This is what I know from experience. One friend of mine despised Roosevelt, but yet wanted him to change. Every morning when shaving, my friend would correct Roosevelt. Although this daily schedule brought him great delight and satisfaction, he could not know why Roosevelt stayed the same. However, I advise you that if you wish someone to change, you have to change your imaginal activity, since it is the only one that affects your life. And you can believe anything in if you will not accept the facts your senses demand. No dream is too big or too far-fetched to become a reality if one is determined enough. There is no being outside of God. In fact, God and humanity are one. Through the power of belief and altering one's mental processes, one can bring their dreams to life, opening doors to countless opportunities. Imagine, the thing itself emerges from that holy body. The great mystery of Jehovah, the narrative of Jesus, cannot be resolved until you realize from experience that He is your own magnificent human imagination. God speaks to man in a dream and reveals Himself in a vision, we are told. Vision now is a waking dream, like this room. A dream is experienced when you are not totally awake. This vision was mine a few years ago. At turn of the century, I was taken in spirit into one of the early mansions on Fifth Avenue in New York City. Three generations were there as I arrived, and I heard the eldest man confide in the others of their grandfather's secret. Grandfather used to say these while standing on an empty lot. Back when I was here, the lot was deserted. Then he would envision the kind of building he wanted to see there in his mind's eye. His belief in the power of visualization and manifestation allowed Grandpa to build magnificent structures out of empty lots. As a testament to the significance of positive thinking and dream believing, his family was astounded by his capacity to conjure intricate mental images. He lived life in that way, objectively realizing what he had first claimed subjectively. Everything in your outer world was first subjectively appropriated, you know. Not one thing matters to me. Desire can be your empty lot from which you might stand. Recalling that which you now possess was merely a want. If I were to say right now, I recall when I spoke at Los Angeles' Women's Club. I am implying I am where I want to be and am no longer there. Thinking back on your impoverished years. I have put you in comfort after pulling you out of poverty. I recall when you were sick and you were taken from sick, and putting you in health state. I recall when you were unknown, implying that you are known now. Through altering my perspective of you in memory, I can now recall when you, with all your wealth and glory, were broke and unknown. Grandfather's success was secret in nature. I learnt this in a vision. Never discount this idea since it arrived to me in a vision. It is claimed in the 12th chapter of the Book of Numbers that God speaks to man through dreams and creates himself via vision. If God shows up in your life via vision and talks to you in dream, what matters more than remembering your dreams and visions? You cannot match the paper from the morning or any book you might consult to your night vision, for that is a direction from the depth of yourself. God in you talks to you dreamwise, as he did for me when he picked me up for a trip across time. The narrator visits a grand mansion at the turn of the century, invisible to everyone but still able to hear the past's secrets. They explore the opulence and grandeur of the era, connecting with the history and energy of the place. This journey is guided by a force beyond comprehension, and understood the words more viscerally than they, since they possessed their millions. And who is going to advise someone already with millions on how to acquire them? I came into their surroundings to learn their tale, to share it with people who will hear and believe what I say and then try it. This does not mean you would appreciate wealth just because you heard my vision. You have to remember and implement what you heard. If you would say, I recall times when I couldn't afford to pay $400 a month for rental, you are suggesting you could now afford it quite easily. The words I recall from trying to survive on my monthly salary suggest you have gone beyond that constraint. Remembering when you could remember when your friend expressed her wish to be married would help you to put yourself in any state, that of a single person or otherwise. As you have moved your friend from one state into another, you are convincing yourself that she is no more in that state. Saying all things exist in the human imagination means infinite states. For everything you could possibly experience now resides in you as a state of which you are operant power. A state cannot come alive without you. For a state to outpicture itself in your world, you have to enter it and animate it. Then you might go back to sleep and believe the objective fact is more real than its subjective form into which you have entered. But all states exist in the imagination, really. When a state is entered subjectively, it becomes objective in your vegetative world, where it will wax and wane and vanish. But its eternal form will remain always and can be reanimated and brought back into being through the seed of considered thought. Entering a state and believing it to be is thus the most creative thing you can do. Causality today is the collection of mental states that, taken as a whole, produces the assemblage implied. Imagine if my good news were shared with two friends who would not sympathize but rather would connect with me. I assembled them and listen in my mind all through as they discuss me and what has happened in my life. Being close friends, I can see their happiness reflected on their faces and hear their joyful words. Then I let myself show them and feel their handshake and hug as I acknowledge their congrats as reality. I now have a mental state that the assemblage implied, developed that which it implied. I am thus its cause. I might wonder how it came about as I walk firmly believing in the reality of what I have done, and that imaginal act becomes a consideration. Then, recalling my imaginal act, I would say, I did it. Should I follow suit, then did not God do? Yes, God and I are one. I am. Are you going to believe the great confession of faith which I would urge you to embrace? Or are you going to keep thinking there is another on the outside? The great Shema is this one. Hear the Lord our God, O Israel. One the Lord is. Should the Lord be one, he cannot be two. You must thus be one with the Lord who created the world if his name is I am and you say I am. Pay close attention to these. Faith helps us to realize that the Word of God created the world. Hence, things that are seen are produced out of things that do not seem to exist. Here we find that the Word of God is an imaginal activity joined with faith that produced the world. And faith is only the personal appropriation of a universal hope. Now, when you share with me your desire, you cannot see my imaginal act in relation to you. If you tell me you need a job, I remember your need when I think of you. I could remember when you needed one, though, if I changed your words and heard you say you loved your work. Right now, my memory bank shows that you have a very desired job. And you tell me you have it when we get together once more. You are simply affirming my imagined creative act. Now, what does it matter what the world believes if imagination operates this way and shows itself repeatedly in the testing phase? Trying it doesn't cost you anything. And what changes in life would be yours. Try it. You will find it evident in performance. This might run counter to what you consider God to be. But if imagination can manifest itself in reality, why not give it a try? The outcomes and the positive changes it can make to your life might surprise you. It may challenge your beliefs about God, but ultimately, the proof will be in the performance. So why not take a chance and see where it leads you? Perhaps you still wish him to be someone on the outside so that two of you rather than one. That is okay if you do. But I tell you, God became you. You wouldn't exist. And God, he became you so you might become God. If God became you, his name has to be in you. And it is. For if I ask you anything, you have to first be aware of the query before you could answer. Your awareness is God as well. Though you might not know your name, where you are or what you are, you do know what your senses and reason tell you. You might think you are limited, unwelcome, disregarded, mistreated, and your world supports your conviction in your imaginal activity. And you will blame everyone but yourself if you do not know that your awareness is generating this mistreatment. Still, I tell you, an imaginal activity is the only thing causing the phenomena of life. There is no other explanation. Your belief fuels the horrors to keep on if you accept the ones presented in the paper and on television as reality. Thinking of a shortage, you will buy something you never need. Accepting the pressure to continue an imaginal activity that keeps you afraid mindlessly. All through the scriptures, you are advised to let not your heart disturb you. Neither should you be terrified or afraid. Psychologists and psychiatrists wouldn't be necessary if fear could be eradicated. I tell everyone, you can bring any want out of the great world you are currently living in by believing it to be real. You have to first know what you desire. Create then a picture that satisfies it. Would your buddies be aware of and discuss? Imagine they are with you right now talking about your fulfilled wish. You could be at a dinner or cocktail party honoring you. Perhaps it's just a little gathering over tea. Create a scene in your mental eye and accept it as reality. The objective state you want will be produced in that invisible state. For all objective reality is created just by imagination. First imagined were the clothes you are now wearing, the chair you are seated in, the room all around you. Not one thing here defies first expectation. You can thus observe that imagination generates reality. Should you reject it, you find yourself lost in a world of uncertainty. Fiction is absent here. Tomorrow's fact will be what fiction is today. A book meant as a fictional narrative today emerges from the imagination of the author and will become a reality in the next years. If you have a good memory or a good research system, you could find today's facts. Not every fact is documented since not every idea is put in writing. Still, every person sees a man unfairly imprisoned and yearning for revenge upsetting the earth. As all things mix, by a law divine in each other's being. One who is imagining cannot stop the force he generates, since behind the mask he wears, you and he are one. Start now to notice your own ideas. For as you see, you picture. Then only will you be able to steer a real path to your clear end. Still, you can and will be moved by seeming others if you lose sight of that end. You cannot fail, though, if you keep your attention fixed on the awareness of living at your destination. Your trip starts at the end where it ends. Tell me what you want. Do not try to explain the steps required to get it, since neither you nor I know them. Tell me what you want and I could hear you. Tell me you own it. I have to first rub that idea out before I can replace it with what you want to be told of how your desire will be satisfied. Man begs to discuss his issues. He seems to enjoy telling them and finds it hard to believe that all he has to do is express his want clearly. If you think imagination creates reality, you will never let yourself linger on your problems since, as you do, you reinforce them all the more. Believing a thing into existence is, therefore, the best thing you can do. Now, if you keep this law, you simply assume you have it instead of having to broadcast what you want. Your assumption will become your reality, even if your reasonable mind and outer senses reject it. Your power of belief is unbounded. Thus, all things are possible to him who believes. Imagine what great power that is. For anything is possible to you. You are not obliged to be smart, good, or friendly. The path to success is to believe that what you are picturing is real. Any man who has been successful in his lifetime has, in my opinion, lived as though he were successful living in that state. He can name those who helped him to reach his success. And he might be denying that he was always conscious of success. But his awareness drove the help he got. To believe your wish into being is to use the great creative power you are. The first psalm tells us, "Blessed is the man who enjoys the law of the Lord. In all he does, he prospers." As the Mount's Sermon's explanation of this law reveals, it is psychological. You have heard it said of old, "Thou shalt not engage in adultery." But I say to you, anyone who yearns after a woman has already in his heart committed the act of adultery with her. Here we find that controlling the impulse on the outside is insufficient. Adultery is committed the moment one starts to dream. Knowing what you want, equip yourself for the act. It was committed in the wanting. Faith has to be added, as without it one cannot satisfy God. Can you picture a state and feel that your imaginal act is now factual? Imagining it costs nothing at all. Actually, although not consciously, you are seeing every moment in time. But may I say, a desire is already satisfied if you use your creative ability by imagining. When you understand it, the situation will seem so natural that it will be simple to reject your imagination had anything to do with it. And you could easily believe that it would have happened anyhow. If you do, though, you will have found yourself back asleep. Most of us, first of all, do not even know our own harvest when it presents itself. And if we do recall that we once imagined it, reason will tell us it would have happened anyhow. Reason will remind you that at a cocktail party, apparently by chance, you came across a man interested in money-making. He sent you to see his friend and check what happened when he heard your concept. Actually, it would have happened anyhow. Naturally, one can also easily overlook the law. But blessed is the man who finds delight in the Lord's law. In all he does, he prospers. Remember the law and apply it sensibly while you are living in Caesar's world. Recall, though, that its use does not justify you. Justification reveals itself in faith. You have to trust the amazing narrative God promised to bring about out of you as you are. All are urged to believe, since this is God's promise to all. You are not what you are. Rather, you are what you believe God to have saved you from. And you will be saved to the extent you believe God to be able to save you. But He has handed us a psychological law to cushion the unavoidable blows of life. The law is as you sow. You will thus harvest. Like begets, like as you picture, your life will develop as such. Knowing what you want, pretend to be the one experiencing that would be yours. Your want will become a reality if you keep in that feeling and in a manner you are not aware of or could not create. Grandfather made his fortune standing on an empty lot and saying to himself, "I remember when this was an empty lot." Then he would depict a lovely word picture of the desired architectural form. This is a really excellent method. You remember when you were a failure, penniless and sick, or unknown? Recalling when you were implies that you are no longer that, and your power is in its implication. Use the law, and you will be from success to success as you conceive success to be. From what I know, success is meant to be fulfilled the promise. And the law cannot help you to accomplish that. Faith helps to satisfy the promise. Are you following the faith? Check yourself to find whether you are. I have shared with you a lifetime narrative. Though you might wish otherwise, do not alter it. The narrative is God became you, that you might be God. While God fulfills His promise, use the law to cushion the blows. And then one day when your road ends, you will say, "Into thy hands I commit my spirit." You atone for me, O Lord. Deductive God. That is the cries on the cross. The text encourages individuals to focus on their imaginal acts. Trust in the process of redemption, embrace challenges and victories, surrender to God's will, and find peace in knowing they are always guided and protected. It encourages trusting in the power of redemption and letting go of doubts or fears, as God's love will always prevail. Then, when least expected, God will show you He has redeemed you by waking in you as you. Then you will birth not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God.